Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos's family story has never been about perfection. It has always been about presence, about showing up with humor, honesty, and an openness that makes their experiences feel familiar, even under the glow of television lights. Over the years, Kelly has invited audiences into moments of parenting, partnership, and reflection, not to perform family life, but to humanize it. Through laughter, confessions, milestones, and vulnerability, their journey reflects the evolving nature of love inside a household where careers are demanding, children are growing into independence, and connection remains the priority. At its heart, this story is not about celebrity. It is about how a family learns, adapts, supports, and continues choosing one another through every season of life. A family built on warmth and balance. Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos have long been admired not only for their careers, but for the way they speak about their home. Their family of five has always been described less as a public brand and more as a living, breathing unit shaped by laughter, boundaries, and care. While viewers see them in polished studio settings, the portrait they paint of their private world is rooted in ordinary devotion. They speak of shared meals, teasing conversations, and the daily rhythms that quietly build emotional safety. Even with public-facing professions, they have consistently protected what truly belongs to them, offering glimpses rather than access. Their household, as Kelly often describes it, is one defined by warmth, mutual respect, and a strong sense of belonging. It's a place where success is celebrated, but character is cultivated, where humor is welcome, but loyalty is foundational. This balance between transparency and protection has allowed them to raise their children in an environment that feels grounded, affectionate, and emotionally attentive. Parenting with honesty and humor. One of the defining traits of Kelly's storytelling is her refusal to present motherhood as a polished ideal. She speaks openly about mistakes, differences, and learning curves, often using humor as a bridge to deeper truth. When she discusses raising her three children, she doesn't flatten them into a single experience. She highlights how each child required something different, emotionally and practically. Her candid admission about spending more on their daughter than their sons was not about money. It was about recognition, about acknowledging that parenting is rarely symmetrical. Needs vary. Personalities shape choices. Love adapts. Delivered with laughter, her confession resonated because it felt honest. It reflected what many parents quietly know but rarely say out loud. That fairness does not always mean identical treatment. It means responsive care. Her willingness to articulate this with warmth transforms a simple anecdote into a reflection on how deeply personal and nuanced parenting truly is. The quiet meaning behind the laughter. Even in her funniest admissions, there is always something more underneath. When Kelly jokes about hand-me-downs or shopping habits, she's really speaking about attention, about noticing, about how love often shows up in the smallest, most domestic decisions. Humor becomes her way of softening truths that could otherwise feel heavy. But the emotional content remains. She is acknowledging that parenting is shaped by instinct as much as by intention. That resource distribution, emotional energy, and time are always being negotiated. These stories resonate because they mirror everyday life. They remind audiences that love is not only expressed in dramatic gestures, but in ordinary choices. What you notice, what you prioritize, what you give without being asked. Beneath the jokes lives a portrait of a mother deeply attuned to her children's individuality and comfortable enough in her role to laugh at her own imperfections. Staying connected across distance. As their children have grown into adults, geography has changed the structure of their family, but not its center. With one child in Brooklyn, another in Michigan, and another moving between London and New York, the household is no longer defined by daily proximity. Instead, it is shaped by intention. Visits become events. Conversations become deliberate. Time together is treated as something to be cherished, not assumed. Kelly and Mark often speak about these reunions with a sense of gratitude. emphasizing how distance has sharpened their appreciation for ordinary togetherness. Whether it is a holiday gathering or a spontaneous visit, the energy of home shifts when all three children return. Laughter becomes louder. Stories flow longer. The house fills with a familiarity that no schedule can replace. Their approach reflects a modern version of family closeness, one that accepts independence while fiercely protecting emotional connection. Love expressed through everyday support. What emerges repeatedly is that support in this family is not symbolic, it is operational. Listening, showing up, encouraging, adjusting. Kelly speaks often about the power of small gestures. Being emotionally available, paying attention, remembering details. These acts, though rarely dramatic, are what sustain closeness across years. Even when humorous anecdotes are shared publicly, the foundation beneath them is emotional reliability. Their children are portrayed not simply as loved, but as known. Their interests recognized. Their independence respected. Their vulnerabilities protected. This approach reframes parenting not as control, but as accompaniment. Walking alongside rather than directing from above. It is this steady presence, repeated across decades, that gives the family its sense of continuity and trust. Balancing ambition with belonging. Both Kelly and Mark have navigated demanding professional lives, yet they consistently frame family as the central organizing force. Their children's independent paths are not seen as separations, but as expansions. Evidence that support has done its work. The ability to pursue careers, relocate, and evolve without losing emotional tethering speaks to a home environment rooted in security. Kelly and Mark's partnership plays a crucial role here. They model cooperation, flexibility, shared responsibility. Their marriage becomes not only a romantic bond, but an infrastructure that supports the entire family system. The story that emerges is one of integration rather than trade-off. Careers exist, ambitions grow, but belonging remains the axis around which everything else turns. Emotional transparency in harder moments. While much of Kelly's storytelling is light, she does not avoid the heavier edges of life. When she speaks about moments of concern, health scares, or uncertainty, her tone shifts. Humor gives way to sincerity. These reflections underscore that even strong, well-resourced families are not insulated from fear. What distinguishes them is not the absence of difficulty, but the way they move through it. Kelly's openness about vulnerability within her marriage highlights a partnership built on mutual care rather than image. They support one another without performance. They acknowledge fear without letting it define them. In doing so, they offer audiences something rare. A public example of resilience rooted not in stoicism, but in emotional availability. Traditions that hold the family together. Holidays and rituals occupy a special place in their family narrative. Christmas in their New York home is not presented as spectacle, but as gathering. A return point. A reaffirmation of shared history. These moments serve as emotional anchors, reminding everyone where they come from even as lives move forward. Kelly and Mark's commitment to these traditions highlights the importance of continuity, of creating spaces where time overlaps, where childhood memories coexist with adult identities. These gatherings are not only celebratory, they are connective. They reinforce that no matter how far individual paths stretch, there remains a central place of belonging. Growth across generations. As Kelly and Mark reflect on the future, including the idea of becoming grandparents, their language reveals an understanding that parenting never truly ends. It evolves. The role shifts from guidance to witnessing, from managing to supporting. Their conversations about what comes next are marked by humor and humility, suggesting a willingness to learn new versions of love. This perspective frames family not as a fixed stage, but as a lifelong process of adaptation, one that requires curiosity, patience, and the courage to release control while staying emotionally invested. Presence as the core value. At the center of every anecdote, Every reflection and every public confession is one consistent theme: presence. Whether attending performances, hosting holidays, navigating challenges, or sharing ordinary evenings, Kelly and Mark emphasize being there. Not perfectly, not always gracefully, but intentionally. Their story ultimately becomes a meditation on what truly sustains families. Not status, not success, but attention, care, emotional availability. Through humor, transparency, and enduring partnership, they model a version of family life grounded in love as an active practice. One choice at a time, one conversation at a time, one ordinary day after another.